Good morning, Hanover Saints. And this morning we continue our theme of what we have learned during our COVID-19 timeout. And today we're going to ask a very practical question, one that plagues us like a virus right here and right now. On the surface, it may be a very practical question, but beneath the surface lies deep questions about faith and about life. Let's begin by letting someone else ask the question. So now, get your best dresses and your finest suits and grab your binoculars because we're going to the theater. So, stage left, let us welcome Hamlet to set the stage for our message from Act 3, Scene 1 of Shakespeare's masterpiece. Here is one brief theatrical disclaimer. As one with virtually no acting skills, I offer this contemporary interpretation of the original version, lest I be run off the stage. To be or not to be? That is the question. Is it nobler to suffer through all the terrible things fate throws at you, or to fight off your troubles and, in doing so, end them completely? To die, to sleep, because that's all dying is, and by a sleep I mean an end to all the heartache and the 1,000 injuries that we are vulnerable to. That's an end to be wished for. And so, improvising on Hamlet's lead part, our question for today is, to mask or not to mask? From the very first press conference when COVID-19 came to America, we were told that the two most important things each of us can do to slow the spread of the virus is to keep our physical distance and to wear a mask. Keeping 6 feet apart is effective because the primary means the virus spreads is through the airborne particles launched by our breathing, talking, sneezing, and singing. To wear a mask is, quite literally, to keep our germs to ourselves. And yet they are so uncomfortable. Especially in this hot weather, they make us steamy and sweaty, fogging up our glasses, making it harder to breathe, if not impossible, when exercising. And even if we don't admit it, at some point, they start to smell really bad. And so now let's look for some answers. These from 3 major historical voices who each helped us better understand our relationships with life, death, others, and God. In the winter of 1623, the Anglican priest and poet John Donne was very ill, not knowing if he would survive to see the spring. During that time, he wrote a volume of 23 devotions, each of which contained a meditation, which were his questions and answers about the meaning of life and of death. I offer you his meditation number 17. No man is an island, entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manner of thy friends or of thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. In this single meditation, Donne gave the world 2 ageless expressions. No man is an island speaks to the eternal truth that none of us can survive on our own. We are all a part of the continent which was in his time the world. He goes on to write that with the death of anyone, everyone is diminished. And that becomes the basis for his most famous piece of advice: when the death bell tolls, don't ask for whom it tolls. It tolls for you and for me and for everyone, because we are all a member of the human family. Donne's meditation is a 17th century assertion not just about the dignity and equality of all people, but a theological declaration about the divine spark that is in every child of God. So, Father John, to mask or not to mask? On to our next respondent, whose answer flows directly from John Donne. As soon as we accept the notion that we are all created equally, and that, as the Apostle Paul wrote, when one member suffers, all suffer together, our call could not be more clear. We are called to resist, confront, and combat anything that risks hurt or harm to anyone. And so let us listen to the response from the most civilly disobedient prophet and servant of our time. In a real sense, all life is interrelated. All people are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be, and you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. There can be no doubt but that Dr. King would be wearing a mask. As one who gave his life so that everyone could be all that God created them to be, he would have done anything to protect others from being sick. And I can only imagine that he would be wearing out many a mask, traveling around the country to lead the chant, Black Lives Matter. Dr. King would be marching in the streets with his mask, leading nonviolent protests in courthouses and legislative halls with his mask, and he would be at the memorial services for those who have been murdered with his mask. I believe Dr. King would be wearing a mask to protect everyone around him from the coronavirus, and that he would do so based in his deepest faith convictions about the love and the nature of God. And so now to our final speaker, one who needs no introduction, one whose words we seek to follow, one whose example serves as our standard for living in the world. In the good news written from Matthew's vantage point, Jesus went to the mountain one day and decided to preach. Ask, and it will be given to you. Search, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened for you. For everyone who asks receives, and everyone who searches finds, and for everyone who knocks, the door will be opened. Is there anyone among you who, if your child asks for bread, will give a stone? Or if the child asks for a fish, will give a snake? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask him? In everything, do to others as you would have them do to you, for this is the law and the prophets. There can be no doubt but that Jesus would be wearing a mask. He would be wearing one because he knows that the mask is not about us. We don our masks for the benefit, the safety, and the health of others. And so when we wear them, our masks are golden because they live into the golden rule, which is to proclaim that our faith compels us to do to others what we would have them do for us. To mask or not to mask, may God bless the masks we wear to bring health, healing, recovery, solidarity, and peace.